Good morning and grand rising. My name is Reverend Dr. Alice Reid, and I'm so happy to be here with you today on this glorious morning where the sky is so blue and the cool breeze that comes off the Pacific just chills everything out. Yeah, you feeling it? Yeah, definitely. We are here at Centers for Spiritual Living Capistrano Valley, even though our pad is too cool for school in his shades, you know. We're here to be together in community, to explore some interesting ideas. We've got this very inviting annual theme of rising higher and then growing deeper, like as above, so below. I say it every week, and it's one of those real basic tenets in any spiritual path. And this month we're rolling in the deep, and we've been taking lessons from Undrown, a book by Alexis Pauline Gumbs, and she takes life lessons from the metaphor of looking at marine mammals. Yes, believe it or not. So she's like a girl or a person after my own heart, because she's able to take some disparate ideas and bring forth some beautiful truths and some ideas that we can carry forward into, and are very relevant to today's our experience today. And so today's topic is go deep. You ready? Shall we? Shall we go deep? Yes, absolutely. So today I'm going to take the idea of Ernest Holmes' wisdom, marine mammals, namely the sperm whale, and loving our enemies, that wonderful teaching from Bible wisdom, and then cultural outrage, like Coldplay, Kiss Cam, and the Epstein files, and I'm going to bring them all together. And we're going to go deep. We're going to go deep. There is this often quoted Bible passage, and for those who partake, because not all of us do, it's Matthew 5:48, and it says there, "Be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect." And you know, in the Science of Mind textbook that I know I see a copy of it there on the podium. In the Science of Mind textbook, that's a book that was written by Ernest Holmes almost 100 years ago, and then he refurbished it a little 10 years later. In that text, even Ernest uses that quotation to metaphysicianize it as a metaphor for our own spiritual perfection. And more on that later. I'm going to bring that quote to you. But first I want to bring Richard Rohr into the room. And for those of you who listen to me a lot, you know that he's like one of my muses. He speaks to my heart, and he speaks to my brain, and he really helps me to see things from a different light. He's a wonderful author. He's authored many books. He's a Franciscan friar. He's also been not well lately, so keep him in your prayers. I hear he's bouncing back, but he's had a little a health event. But he shared recently that this particular quote about being, and let me just read it again, "Be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect," that it was used in the 17th and 18th century out of context to influence spiritual seekers that humanity needed to seek acceptance from a deity by trying to be perfect. And so you may not, let me just put it this way, that in this idea that it was actually brought forward by Jansenism in the 17th and 18th century, and if you have any Christian leanings, you may have been influenced by that. And even if you don't have any relationship to Christian teaching, you have been influenced by that, obviously, because we have this society where we are like mad about success, right? We have to be better to be acceptable. In order to receive acceptance from each other, we have to do better than we did last week or last month or last year even. And we're always striving and efforting to be perfect in that human idea of perfection. And what I want to say about that is that the more we strive for perfection, the more it isolates us. It sets us apart from each other. It brings us to a place of separateness, and yet we teach oneness. We teach this beautiful idea that we are all one, and so we don't need to set ourselves apart as being better than or perfect or to strive to be more loved. And I think what happens in that imbalanced relationship with the human idea of perfection, that the pendulum has swung, that we have this public outrage when someone is less than perfect. When we have, you have to be under a rock if you're not familiar with the Coldplay Kiss Cam issue that came up. The two executives from a startup corporation with 300 employees were caught nuzzling each other on Kiss Cam at a Coldplay concert, and it went viral. The problem was they're both married to other people. Now, I'm not at all suggesting that these public scandals that people tend to get outraged about, I'm not suggesting at all that we should make that behavior okay. I think that behavior is a distraction to us. Like when we become outraged by something someone else does, and we have this sort of, everybody gets on the bandwagon with public outrage, I think it's an opportunity for us to go deeper. Like, what is it? Why are you so distracted about two people you've never met? You wouldn't know if you tripped over them on the street. Why are we so outraged by other people's behavior? Why do we get so excited about scandals? I have a colleague who was reaching out about growing her community, and I was thinking about how we have a beautiful philosophy that talks about the balance in life and how we can really center ourselves in love, and how life is always working for us. And yet, how does it compare to all the scandals, the noise that's out there? Like, I don't think people can even hear the other messages of healthy living because we're so distracted, right? We're so distracted by everybody else's transgressions. And what that does to us is it creates an opportunity for us to be in judgment. And discernment's important. It's important to all of us, but when we get lost in our judgments, we use that as a distraction so that we don't have to look at our own stuff. It takes us to a place of not acknowledging our own challenges with intimacy. There was this beautiful, and you'll have to go to Facebook to get it, or I'll email it to you later, but there was this, hello. The wind must have blown a door shut in the backstage. Cass is waving. He's like, yep, that's what it was. Or the wind is outraged. I don't know. God is speaking to us. We should be outraged. No. No, we should not. We should not. It's a natural, egoic, organic response for us not to want to deal with something uncomfortable within ourselves. It's pretty much our human nature. But there's this other place in us that wants to go deep, that wants to be clear, wants to be more authentic in its expression. And so sometimes it's easy for us to want to be distracted and to protect our fragile self-image at all costs. You guys following me with this? You following me where I'm going with this? Rohr puts it this way, Richard Rohr puts it this way. He says, grace and forgiveness are always a humiliation for the ego. Like, our ego is always trying to protect us. It's always trying to keep us on top. That is sort of what's in the cultural norm for us. But when we find ourselves in these places where we are really distracted by other people's behavior, especially people we don't even know, it's an opportunity for us to go deeper. Ernest Holmes references that quote about perfection. He goes on to, he writes in the Science of Mind textbook, Jesus did not say, "Be ye therefore good as your Father in heaven is good," but "Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect." And he's talking about spiritual perfection, not moral and ethical perfection. He's talking about a level of spiritual perfection. And when Holmes talks about spiritual perfection, he's not talking about the Martha Stewart lifestyle where everything has its place and it's perfect. He's talking about spiritual perfection in that love shows up for us and perfection shows up for us in the new relationship and in the end of the relationship, in the new job and in the end of the job. Like, spiritual perfection is not this human perfection of everything being tidy and neat. I have found beautiful spiritual lessons, and I don't even want to call them lessons, they're more like insights, when my life is really messy. It's when that's when the barriers get broken down and I can access my heart. Because this world of ours, we create these barriers where we have to protect everything. And sometimes we need a little mess to be able to get to our true essence, our authentic self. Now, this wisdom that comes from the Bible about perfection is actually preceded by a couple of paragraphs where the lesson that's being shared with us has to do with loving our enemies. And so in context with this idea of be perfect as your Father is also perfect in heaven, and first talking about loving our enemies, I will go out on a limb here and say that what I think the deeper message with this is that when we perceive that someone is our enemy, when we perceive that something outside of us is against us, it is our opportunity to come back to spiritual perfection and to love life as it presents itself. We're so quick to judge our neighbor because then we don't have to look at ourselves. And yet there's some healing that wants to happen in any situation, and again, and not to excuse behavior that is hurtful to other people, but in any situation when we find people misbehaving at some level, underneath all that is some hurt and pain. Underneath that is some anger. Underneath that is some place that wants to be healed. And so if we can see those as opportunities to come to healing, we can begin to be that place where consciousness shows up and we can have a greater experience of life. Now, how this relates to sperm whales. Follow me, here we go. Alex Gumps in her book shares this powerful metaphor about the depth of the ocean. She shares this story about how in World War II, the sonar readings that they did gave them a false read on the bottom of the ocean, so they didn't know how deep it was, really. Because what they were reading was teeming life forms, and the sonar was hitting these like big schools of fish and life, and it would bounce back up, and they assumed that was the bottom. But if we look at that idea of false bottoms, what we can begin to see is that when we, with our own mental or emotional sonar, think if we go down to the depths of whatever it is that's calling us deeper, we're going to hit the fear or shame or blame. It's a false bottom. Because underneath that is the true depth of your being, is the true depth of who you are, and it's really just the echo of your soul calling you forward. Kind of fun metaphor, don't you think? That really, when we have these experiences of not wanting to go deeper because we think that the bottom is going to be something hurtful to us, that there's actually something underneath that wants to be revealed. And so Holmes says, we're always expanding. We have never plumbed the depths. And so here's where the sperm whale wisdom comes up for us so that we can have some deep diving skills to guide us, to love our enemies. And let me just say this, that sometimes it's not the external enemies, sometimes it's the enemies within. Sometimes it's the self-judgment, sometimes it's the projection that we do out there is really when we are struggling with something that's happening outside of us that's really hitting or reflecting something that's inside of us that we don't want to see. And so the sperm whales have these, I'm going to share 4 things that they do that we can use when it's time for us to dive deep, to go past that false bottom and to really tap into what it is that life wants us to know so that we can have a greater sense of wholeness and healing. So you need to know a couple facts about sperm whales. First of all, they can hold their breath for 90 minutes. They are mammals. They require oxygen to live. And yet they can dive deep and hold their breath for 90 minutes. Furthermore, within their organic makeup, they have this substance that surrounds the front of their brain. That is why they're called sperm whales, because it's a waxy substance. And it actually adapts depending upon the temperature and the depth that they are, which helps them to actually adapt to deeper depths. And so they can still think and use their instincts to function. Furthermore, it's very interesting that when a sperm whale comes up for breath, it can replace 90% of its oxygen in one breath. Wow, that's pretty amazing. And then it goes back down for up to 90 minutes. So there's a couple things we can take from that when it's time for us to do a deep dive. And one is that we need to breathe. We need to breathe. Anybody been in a stressful situation where you realize you're not breathing? I was doing a deep dive with a mentor of mine recently, and we were talking about some big insight that was a little scary for me, and she stops mid-sentence and she says, "Breathe, Alice, breathe." And I don't even know I'm not breathing when I do it. But when we breathe, we make space. When we're stressed, a breath can be the difference between panic and a lovely introspection, something that really is going to serve us. Number 2, take responsibility for your forehead. Like the sperm whale that has that substance that can help it adapt, you can adapt your thoughts. You can notice the thoughts that you're having and adapt them to the situation so that you're not spinning. I have somebody I'm mentoring, and that's one of the things I keep saying to her. She's moving through difficult situations. I'm like, stop spinning. It's not helping. But we do that, and so if we can be like the sperm whale and take responsibility for our thoughts, we can actually shift. We can make a shift within our thinking so that we can be present for what it is that wants to come up and be healed within us. The third one is to hush and listen within. The sperm whale can rise up from the depths of the ocean and barely make a sound. Anybody who's been whale watching knows that thing where you're totally surprised because all of a sudden you have this huge animal, breaching the surface and you didn't even hear it coming up. And so the lesson for us is to be quiet and to quiet our busy mind and to really allow ourselves to inhabit the stillness, because in stillness we can experience peace. And in that peaceful place we can begin to hear the guidance that wants to bubble up from within us. And I like this last tip that we can learn from sperm whales, and that is to be flexible under pressure. Gump writes in her book, "It's not heartbreak. It's how what made you embraces you." I'm going to read that again because I tripped over it the first time I read it, and when I really got it, I thought, this is really powerful. It's not heartbreak. It's how what made you embraces you. And I liken that to the embrace of the water around the sperm whale, and as it goes deeper, the pressure increases. But the water is embracing the whale. It is not trying to hurt it or do harm to it. And so likewise, when we find ourselves under pressure, it's an opportunity for us to be flexible. That rather than have our heart shattered, we can have it soften. And it's in the softening that we can be more available to that inner guidance, that we can be more available to something that wants to come up within us. Allowing yourself to dive deep within the confines of your own soul without being crushed by the weight of your expectations or the expectations of others. We can dive deeper when we incorporate our breath and our mindfulness and stillness and flexibility. And when we do that, when we dive deeper, when we allow ourselves to go past all that surfacey splashing around of whatever it is that we're afraid of, well, something is there for you, or it wouldn't be happening in your life. Like if whatever is happening in your life is for you and not against you. And so it's up to you to incorporate some tools that can help you navigate it. Again, Richard Rohr, he writes, the ego wants to feel it's achieved salvation, but grace is received, not earned. So if we look at this quote that was taken out of context about perfection, it isn't about earning our good. It isn't about earning the right to be loved. It's about surrendering what it is we're fighting so that we can receive the grace and love. My invitation to you this week is to consider where in your life you're still trying to do perfect. You're still trying to earn love. You're still trying to have this, carve out this space for yourself, because that just creates a lot of havoc. It creates blame and shame. It creates distraction, when the fact is that you were designed and born exactly the way you are, in your spiritual perfection, warts and all, because the Creator, the thing that makes the grass grow, created you exactly and perfectly exactly as you are. And so today, let us stop striving to be perfect and let us surrender to grace. Let us surrender to those places that come up in our life and allow ourselves to dive deep, not because we are soul divers in the ocean of life, but because we're supported by the ocean of life. It's supporting us. It wants us to do well. It wants us to let go of any false idea of human imperfection so that you can recognize your own spiritual perfection. We do this thing called spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer, and I want to invite our ministers and practitioners to come up, because one of the things that we really enjoy doing for our members is what we call a prayer wall. And this prayer wall is an opportunity for you to come forward and to pray with a practitioner right here this morning, something that might be heavy on your heart, something that you're challenged with, something that you're striving against, when really all you need to do is surrender and give it back, give it up, let it go, and allow yourself to be supported by the divine. And so if you have something that you're moving through, something that you're struggling with, or something that you want more of, you are invited now to come forward and to receive a prayer from one of our practitioners. Those of you who have done this before, you know the power in it. So please come forward. And just be patient. There'll be another one ready for you soon. Come forward. Steve, come forward. Right here, Steve. Right over here. Steve. Come on down. Come on down. We got one here. Sherry, right here. Well, we're gonna sing next. Yeah, in a minute. You can sit down. Cheryl, you can sit down. You can sit down, Pam. can sit down, Joe. You can sit down, Arapad. You can sit down. And as our last pair finish up, I want to thank you all for creating this sacred space so that people could come up and receive a wonderful prayer. And I want you to know that if you weren't comfortable coming up for prayer, that there will be practitioners in the back of the room after the service. If you want some of this good stuff that you saw up here, those of you who had prayer know what I'm talking about. It's a powerful place to surrender yourself to a greater good that only God could know for you, as you, through you, and by you, through prayer. And so the only thing left to say is, and so it is. Thanks for going with a deep dive with me. Appreciate it.